My husband left me for a 25-year-old, so I married her father and became her stepmother. If you're just tuning in, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. And please show us some love with a like. And comment below to let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from all over the world. The champagne glass slipped from trembling fingers, crystal fragments dancing across marble floors like scattered dreams. Through the crack in the bedroom door, she watched her world crumble in real time. Jude, her husband of 15 years, pressed his lips against smooth caramel skin that belonged to someone young enough to be their daughter. "God, Lena, you make me feel alive again," he whispered, his hands exploring territory that once belonged exclusively to his wife. The woman behind the door pressed her palm against her mouth, stifling the scream that threatened to tear through her throat. Tessa Reynolds had suspected something was wrong for months. The late nights, mysterious phone calls, and sudden interest in fitness had painted a picture she refused to acknowledge. But seeing it, feeling the betrayal burn through her chest like acid, made denial impossible. Lena giggled, a sound that cut through Tessa's heart like broken glass. "What about your wife? What's her name again?" "Tessa." Jude's laugh was cruel, dismissive. "What about her? She's 42, stuck in routines, boring as hell. You're everything she's not. Young, exciting, spontaneous. 25 years of marriage, 2 children, countless sacrifices, reduced to boring." Tessa's vision blurred with tears that burned like fire. Her successful accounting firm, the family she'd built, the dreams they'd shared, all meaningless compared to youthful curves and naive laughter. She backed away slowly, each step echoing in her mind like thunder. The hardwood floors she'd chosen, the paint colors she'd agonized over, the home she'd created with love, all of it felt foreign now, tainted by betrayal's poison. In the kitchen, Tessa's reflection stared back from the window. Still beautiful, still strong, but somehow diminished. She touched her wedding ring, the diamond catching light like trapped tears. Tomorrow everything would change. Tonight, she planned her resurrection from the ashes of her marriage. Morning light streamed through silk curtains as Tessa sat at the breakfast table, her coffee growing cold. She'd spent the night researching, planning, preparing for war. The divorce papers lay neatly beside her plate, each page a declaration of independence from 15 years of lies. Jude stumbled downstairs, his guilty conscience written across his face like a roadmap to hell. He kissed her forehead absently, the same lips that had whispered sweet lies to another woman just hours before. "You're up early, baby," he mumbled, reaching for the newspaper. "We need to talk." Tessa's voice was steady as stone, betraying none of the hurricane raging inside her chest. Something in her tone made him freeze. His dark eyes met hers, and she saw the exact moment fear crept in. Good. Let him squirm like the worm he'd become. Talk about what? His attempt at innocence was pathetic, insulting her intelligence one final time. About Lena. The name dropped between them like a bomb, exploding the pretense into smithereens. Jude's face drained of color, his newspaper falling to the floor like his facade. "Tessa, I can explain." "No need." She slid the divorce papers across the mahogany table they'd bought together in happier times. "I saw everything. Every kiss, every touch, every lie you whispered to her about how boring I am." His hands shook as he picked up the documents, scanning the legalese that would end their marriage. "This is crazy. We can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling." "Couples therapy?" Tessa's laugh was sharp enough to cut diamonds. "You want to discuss rebuilding trust with the same mouth that was sucking on a 25-year-old's tongue?" The vulgar truth hung in the air like smoke, choking them both. Jude flinched as if she'd slapped him, which she was seriously considering. "She means nothing to me. It was just what? Just sex. Just fun. Just a way to feel young again while your boring wife paid the bills and raised your children." Tessa's private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Detective Rivera, sat across from her in the downtown office, manila folders spread between them like evidence at a crime scene. The photos were damning. Jude and Lena at restaurants, hotels, even the family cabin Tessa thought was their sacred space. "Your husband's been sloppy," Rivera said, her voice professionally detached. No attempt to hide the affair. "They've been together for 8 months. 8 months. Tessa's stomach churned, remembering their anniversary dinner just 6 months ago. How attentive Jude had seemed, how guilty he must have felt. Or maybe he hadn't felt anything at all. What about her? Tessa asked, studying a photo of Lena laughing at some restaurant, her youth radiating from the image like heat from a fire. Lena Mitchell, 25, works at that new marketing firm downtown. Parents divorced when she was 12. Raised by her father, Robert Mitchell. The name triggered something in Tessa's memory. Robert Mitchell. Why does that sound familiar? Rivera flipped through her notes. He's a prominent real estate developer. Widowed 5 years ago. His ex-wife, Lena's mother, remarried and moved to Atlanta. From what I can gather, Lena has daddy issues. Of course she did. Tessa studied the photos more carefully, seeing past the surface beauty to something desperate underneath. This girl was looking for a father figure, and Jude, weak, pathetic Jude, was happy to play the role. Tell me about Robert Mitchell. Successful, wealthy, 58 years old. Lost his wife to cancer. Devoted himself to business after that. Lena's his only child, and from what I can tell, he spoils her rotten. An idea began forming in Tessa's mind, dangerous and delicious. If Lena wanted to play games with married men, perhaps it was time she learned about consequences. And if Robert Mitchell was the devoted father Rivera described, he might be very interested to learn about his precious daughter's extracurricular activities. I want to meet him, Tessa said, her voice steady despite the chaos brewing in her thoughts. Rivera raised an eyebrow. The father? What are you planning? The charity gala buzzed with the city's elite, champagne glasses clinking like wind chimes in the opulent ballroom. Tessa had chosen her outfit carefully. A midnight blue dress that hugged her curves perfectly, diamond earrings that caught the light with every movement. She looked devastating, and she knew it. Robert Mitchell stood near the auction tables, his presence commanding even in a room full of powerful people. He was handsome in a distinguished way. Silver hair, strong jawline, eyes that held depths of experience and pain. Nothing like the immature boy toy Jude had become. Mr. Mitchell? Tessa approached with the confidence of a woman who'd built her own empire. I'm Tessa Reynolds. I believe our children know each other. His smile was warm, genuine. Mrs. Reynolds, pleasure to meet you. Our children? I'm afraid I'm drawing a blank. Your daughter Lena is close with my husband Jude. The words dripped with carefully controlled venom. Robert's expression shifted subtly, paternal instincts sharpening. Close how? Perhaps we could speak privately? Tessa gestured toward the balcony, where the night air would provide cover for uncomfortable truths. They stepped outside, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. Tessa pulled out her phone, showing him the photos Rivera had provided. His face went through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, recognition, disgust, and finally, a cold fury that made her pulse quicken. How long? His voice was ice over steel. 8 months. I discovered them 3 days ago. Robert studied the photos with the intensity of a man cataloging evidence for war. His daughter, barely older than a college student, wrapped around a married man old enough to be her father. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. I'm sorry you had to see this, he said finally, his voice heavy with shame and anger. Are you? Or are you just sorry your daughter got caught playing homewrecker? Their eyes met, and Tessa saw something dangerous flickering in his gaze. Something that matched the fire burning in her own chest. The coffee shop was neutral territory, away from prying eyes and social expectations. Robert Mitchell sat across from Tessa, his hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't touched. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of him confronting his daughter and her refusing to end the affair. She says she loves him, Robert said, disgust evident in every syllable. Says he's going to leave you for her. Tessa's laugh was bitter as black coffee. Is he now? How generous of my husband to make promises with assets he doesn't own. I've tried reasoning with her, threatening to cut off her trust fund, even offered to send her to Europe for a year. Nothing works. She's convinced this is some grand love story instead of what it really is. A middle-aged man having a crisis with a girl young enough to be his daughter. The parallel wasn't lost on either of them. Here they sat, 2 parents watching their family destruction unfold, both betrayed by people they'd loved unconditionally. What if we gave them what they think they want? Tessa asked, her voice dangerously soft. Robert's eyes sharpened. What do you mean? They want to play house. Let them. But they'll do it without the safety nets we've provided. No money from you, no assets from me. Let's see how deep their love runs when reality hits. You're talking about cutting them off completely. I'm talking about consequences. Your daughter is destroying a marriage, breaking up a family with children. My husband is throwing away 15 years for someone who could be our child. They both need to learn that actions have prices. Robert leaned back, studying her with new interest. There was something calculating in his gaze, something that made her pulse quicken with anticipation. And what do we get out of this arrangement? Tessa smiled, the expression sharp enough to cut glass. We get to watch them crash and burn together. And maybe, we get to rebuild something better from the ashes. The unspoken understanding passed between them like electricity. This wasn't just about punishment anymore. This was about resurrection. The restaurant was intimate, candlelit, the kind of place where secrets were shared over expensive wine. Tessa had suggested it, had chosen her outfit with the precision of a military strategist. Robert Mitchell was attractive, successful, and most importantly, he understood betrayal in ways Jude never could. I never thanked you properly, she said, allowing her fingers to brush his across the white tablecloth. For standing with me against them. Robert's eyes darkened at the contact. We're both victims here, Tessa. It's only natural we'd support each other. Is that what this is? Support. Her voice dropped to a whisper that made him lean closer, made him notice the way her perfume mixed with the wine to create something intoxicating. What else would it be? She smiled, slow and dangerous. I think you know. The tension between them had been building for weeks. Stolen glances during their strategy sessions, hands that lingered too long during chance encounters, conversations that danced around the edges of something explosive. This is complicated, Robert said, but his thumb traced circles on her wrist that suggested he didn't care about complications. Everything worthwhile is complicated. Tessa's dress had ridden up slightly, revealing enough thigh to make his breath catch. Our children certainly don't seem concerned with complications. They're children playing with fire. And what are we? Robert's grip on her hand tightened. We're adults who know exactly what fire can do. The challenge hung between them like a dare. Tessa leaned closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes, close enough to smell the champagne on her lips. Then maybe it's time we played with matches. When his lips met hers, it was nothing like the desperate groping she'd witnessed between Jude and Lena. This was controlled fire, deliberate and consuming. This was two damaged people finding solace in shared destruction. Your place or mine, she whispered against his mouth. Mine, he growled. I want you in my bed. The penthouse apartment was a testament to Robert's success. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art that cost more than most people's homes, furniture that whispered luxury with every curve. Tessa moved through the space like she belonged there, her confidence intoxicating. Drink? Robert asked, his voice rougher than usual. Wine. Something expensive. She settled onto his leather sofa, her dress riding up to reveal long, toned legs that made his mouth go dry. He poured 2 glasses of wine that cost more than Jude spent on his pathetic affair dates, his hands steadier than he felt. When he turned back, Tessa was studying him with an intensity that made his pulse race. To new beginnings, she said, raising her glass. To making them pay, he countered, and they drank to their shared vengeance. The wine was good, but the company was intoxicating. They talked about business, about their children, about the betrayals that had brought them together. With each glass, the distance between them shrank until her hand was on his thigh, until his fingers were tracing the line of her collarbone. Are you sure about this? He asked, even as his hands found the zipper of her dress. I've never been more sure of anything. Her dress pooled around her feet like spilled ink. They want to destroy our families. Let's show them what real destruction looks like. When he lifted her, carrying her toward his bedroom, Tessa caught sight of their reflection in the hallway mirror. They looked dangerous together, like 2 predators who'd found the perfect hunting partner. The bedroom was masculine, dominated by a king-sized bed that promised sin and salvation in equal measure. When Robert laid her down, his touch was reverent, hungry, nothing like the detached affection she'd grown accustomed to. You're beautiful, he whispered, his lips trailing fire down her throat. Show me, she demanded, arching against him with a desperation that surprised them both. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about reclaiming power, about proving they were still vital, still desirable, still worth more than their cheating partners had ever appreciated. Sunlight streamed through silk curtains, painting golden patterns across tangled sheets and satisfied bodies. Tessa woke in Robert's arms, her body humming with the memory of a night that had exceeded every expectation. This wasn't the desperate fumbling of middle-aged desperation. This was two powerful people claiming what they deserved. "Good morning." Robert's voice was rough with sleep and satisfaction. "Is it?" She traced patterns on his chest, marveling at how right this felt. "I should feel guilty. But you don't. Not even a little." She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the morning light. "Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you human. They started this war, Tessa. We're just fighting back with better weapons." His phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Lena demanding money for a weekend getaway with her married lover. Robert showed Tessa the message, his jaw tightening with renewed anger. "Perfect timing," Tessa said, a plan crystallizing in her mind. "Text her back. Tell her you want to meet for lunch today. You have something important to discuss." "What are you thinking?" Tessa's smile was sharp as a blade. "I'm thinking it's time for phase 2. They want to play happy family? Let's give them a family reunion they'll never forget." She reached for her own phone, scrolling to Jude's number. "And I think it's time my dear husband met his girlfriend's father. You know, to ask for her hand properly." Robert's laugh was dark, approving. "You're diabolical." "I'm thorough. If we're going to destroy them, we need to do it right. Complete devastation, no survivors." They spent the morning planning, their strategy sessions interrupted by kisses that tasted like revenge and promises of more. By the time Tessa left Robert's penthouse, they had a plan that would expose the affair publicly and humiliate both Jude and Lena in ways that would haunt them forever. As she drove home, Tessa caught sight of herself in the rearview mirror. Her lips were swollen from Robert's kisses, her eyes bright with purpose and satisfaction. She looked like a woman reborn, dangerous and beautiful and absolutely unstoppable. The upscale restaurant hummed with afternoon conversation as Lena Mitchell sat across from her father, her manicured nails drumming impatiently against the white tablecloth. She'd expected another lecture about her relationship with Jude, another futile attempt to control her life. "Daddy, if this is about Jude again." "It's about respect," Robert interrupted, his voice carrying an edge that made her squirm. "Something you seem to have forgotten." Lena rolled her eyes, the gesture making her look even younger than her 25 years. "Here we go. The same speech about family honor and reputation. I'm an adult, Daddy. I can date whoever I want. Even married men? He's getting divorced. We're in love." Robert's laugh was cold enough to freeze champagne. "Love? Is that what you call destroying a 15-year marriage? Breaking up a family with children? Those kids are practically adults and his wife doesn't understand him. She's boring, stuck in the past. Jude needs someone who appreciates him." The dismissive way she spoke about Tessa made Robert's blood boil. His daughter had become someone he didn't recognize. Selfish, entitled, cruel. "I want you to meet someone," he said, signaling the waiter. "Another one of your business associates trying to set me up with their boring son? No thank you. Not a business associate. Someone much more important." Tessa appeared at their table like an avenging angel in designer clothing, her presence immediately shifting the restaurant's energy. Lena's face went through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, recognition, and finally, pure terror. "Lena Mitchell," Tessa said, her voice silk over steel. "The homewrecker. How lovely to finally meet you properly." Lena's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. What is she doing here?" Sitting down, apparently. Tessa settled into the chair beside Robert, her proximity to him clearly intimate. "Your father and I have become quite close lately." The implications hit Lena like a physical blow. Her eyes darted between them, seeing the satisfied smiles, the casual way Robert's hand rested on Tessa's arm, the undeniable chemistry crackling between them. "No," she whispered, her face draining of color. "This isn't happening." The private dining room at the country club was elegant, exclusive, the kind of place where the city's power brokers made deals that shaped lives. Jude sat uncomfortably in his chair, still confused about why Robert Mitchell had insisted on this meeting. "I appreciate you coming," Robert said, his tone cordial but somehow threatening. "I thought it was time we discussed our children's relationship properly." Jude shifted nervously. He'd expected an angry father, maybe threats or demands to end the affair. Instead, Robert seemed almost amused. Sir, I want you to know my intentions toward Lena are completely honorable. I'm divorcing my wife and I plan to marry your daughter. Are you? Robert's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. How fascinating. And what makes you think you're worthy of my daughter? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Jude straightened, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. I love her. I can provide for her, give her everything she deserves. Everything she deserves. Robert repeated the words like he was tasting something bitter. Tell me, Jude, what exactly do you think my daughter deserves? Before Jude could answer, the dining room door opened. Tessa walked in, radiant in a way that made Jude's breath catch. He looked different. Confident, powerful, dangerously beautiful. Tessa, what are you doing here? She smiled, settling into the chair beside Robert with an intimacy that made Jude's stomach clench. I'm here with my fiancé, darling. The word hit Jude like a physical blow. Fiancé. Robert reached into his jacket, producing a small velvet box that he placed on the table with deliberate ceremony. I asked Tessa to marry me this morning. She said yes. Jude stared at the engagement ring, a diamond so large it seemed to mock his pathetic attempts at romance. This is insane. You barely know each other. We know each other well enough, Tessa said, her hand finding Robert's. Sometimes when you meet the right person you just know. But we were married for 15 years. Were we? Or were you just using me as a placeholder until something younger and more exciting came along? The truth of her words hit him like a slap. Jude looked between them, seeing the satisfaction in their eyes, the way they fit together like pieces of a puzzle he'd never been able to complete. This is revenge, he whispered. This is justice, Robert corrected. 6 months later, the cathedral was packed with the city's elite, all witness to what society pages would call the wedding of the decade. Tessa walked down the aisle in ivory silk that cost more than Jude's car, her beauty radiating confidence and triumph. In the front row, Lena sat beside Jude, both looking like they'd swallowed poison. The affair that had seemed so romantic, so exciting, had crumbled under the weight of reality. Without her father's financial support and with Jude's assets frozen in divorce proceedings, their grand love story had become a sordid struggle for survival. Robert waited at the altar, distinguished in his tailored tuxedo, his eyes never leaving his bride. What had started as revenge had evolved into something deeper, something real. They were two wounded souls who'd found healing in each other's arms. Dearly beloved, the minister began, his voice echoing through the sacred space. Tessa barely heard the words. Her focus was on Robert's face, on the promise in his eyes, on the future they were building together. When it came time for vows, Robert's voice was steady, certain. Tessa, you came into my life when I'd given up on happiness. You showed me that sometimes the most beautiful things rise from the ashes of what we thought was lost. I promise to love you, protect you, and stand with you against whatever challenges we face. Her own vows were equally heartfelt, equally loaded with the subtext of their unusual beginning. Robert, you saw me at my lowest point and chose to lift me up instead of walking away. You showed me that revenge is sweet, but love is sweeter. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your greatest supporter. When they kissed, sealing their union, the cathedral erupted in applause. But Tessa's attention was on the front row, where Lena was crying, not tears of joy, but tears of absolute defeat. The reception was lavish, over the top, a celebration that would be talked about for years. During the father-daughter dance that would never happen, Tessa caught Lena's eye across the ballroom and smiled. She'd won. Completely, utterly, devastatingly. And it felt absolutely perfect. The penthouse had been redecorated to reflect their combined tastes, Tessa's warmth blending with Robert's sophistication to create something entirely new. They'd been married for 3 months, and every day felt like a small victory against the people who'd tried to destroy them. The doorbell rang during their quiet Sunday morning, interrupting coffee and newspapers and the comfortable intimacy of new marriage. Robert frowned, they weren't expecting anyone. I'll get it, Tessa said, tying her silk robe tighter around her waist. Lena stood in the hallway looking smaller than Tessa remembered. The girl who'd once radiated confidence and entitlement now appeared hollow, desperate, wearing clothes that had seen better days. Is my father home? Lena's voice was barely above a whisper. Your father is home, Tessa said, emphasizing the relationship that now made her Lena's stepmother. But I'm not sure he wants to see you. Please. I need to talk to him. Jude and I, we're broke. We can't pay rent, can't afford food. I made a mistake." The words were music to Tessa's ears, but she kept her expression neutral. "What kind of mistake?" "I chose the wrong man. I destroyed my relationship with my father for someone who—" Lena's voice broke. "Someone who turned out to be nothing like I thought." Robert appeared behind Tessa, his face stone when he saw his daughter. "What do you want, Lena?" "Daddy, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Jude isn't who I thought he was. When the money ran out, when things got hard, he started blaming me for everything. He said I ruined his life, that he gave up everything for a spoiled brat." The irony was delicious. Jude had discovered that young and exciting became young and expensive very quickly. Without Tessa's financial stability and Robert's support, their great love affair had devolved into bitter recriminations and financial stress. "And now you want forgiveness?" Robert's voice was ice. "I want my family back. I want to come home." Tessa stepped forward, her smile sharp as a blade. "Home? But darling, this is my home now. I'm your stepmother, remember? And stepmothers have rules." The word stepmother hung in the air like a curse. The ultimate irony of their situation finally crystallized. 1 year later, the family dynamics had settled into something resembling normalcy, if normalcy could be defined as exquisite, ongoing revenge. Lena lived in the penthouse's guest quarters, essentially a prisoner of her own poor choices, dependent on the charity of the woman whose marriage she'd destroyed. Jude had moved back in with his mother after a series of increasingly desperate attempts to win back either his wife or his girlfriend. Both women had rejected him completely, leaving him to face the consequences of his midlife crisis alone and broke. The real surprise came during Tessa and Robert's first anniversary dinner, when Robert produced a second ring. Not just any ring, but Jude's original wedding band, which he'd somehow acquired. "How did you get this?" Tessa asked, studying the familiar gold band that had once symbolized promises Jude couldn't keep. "Your ex-husband sold it," Robert said, his smile dark with satisfaction. "Along with his watch, his golf clubs, and anything else of value. Turns out desperation makes men do interesting things." "And you bought it?" "I bought everything. I wanted to make sure he had nothing left of his old life, nothing to remind him of what he threw away." Tessa slipped the ring onto her right hand, next to her wedding band and engagement ring. "Perfect. Now I have everything that used to be his, including his father-in-law." They laughed, the sound echoing through their perfect home, their perfect revenge, their perfect marriage built on the ashes of other people's mistakes. From the guest quarters came the sound of Lena crying. Again. She did that a lot lately, mourning the life she'd destroyed for a love that had never been real. "Should we check on your daughter?" Tessa asked, though they both knew the answer. "She's learning," Robert said, pulling his wife closer. "Sometimes the hardest lessons are the most valuable." Outside their window, the city sparkled with possibilities, with second chances, with the promise that sometimes revenge really was a dish best served with a side of happily ever after. Tessa Reynolds Mitchell had won everything. The man, the money, the satisfaction of watching her enemies destroy themselves. And in the guest room, her stepdaughter cried herself to sleep, finally understanding that actions have consequences, and some games are too dangerous to play with people who are better at them than you are. Thanks for watching. Give us a like if you like the video and share with us in the comments what you think about this lovely tale. We always enjoy reading your comments.